Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the Ad Race podcast. I'm your host, Fayola Douglas, and I'm joined by Jermaine Balfourth, Associate Design Director at Oliver and founder of BLACQ Space. Jermaine is a creative lead with over 15 years experience shaping brands across sport, fashion, lifestyle and culture, and he's worked on some great brands. His work blends strategy, style and cultural relevance to cut through the noise. At Oliver, he leads teams that push through boundaries and set new standards. Outside of work, he founded BLACQ Space, a fast-growing platform created to connect, support and champion Black creatives in the industry. What started as a WhatsApp group is now a 2,000 plus strong movement making real impact. Welcome, Jermaine.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I know you studied graphic design at university. Did you know back then what you wanted to go on to do?
Interesting. I guess if we rewind a little bit, I think creative is one of those things that I believe I had a natural talent for it. And that was one of the things that in school, that I had a couple, my teacher in school when I was in secondary school, she quite quickly identified to my parents that I was either going to be in sports or creative. It's like all my skill sets, all my results led to those paths. And she strongly believed in me, strongly believed that this was going to be my path. So she invested quite a lot of time into me. This is an art design course. I had a graphic design teacher as well, and I really liked graphics in school. And between the two of them, it kind of shaped a lot of the things. My mum was one of the greatest drawers as a kid for me. She used to do a lot of our drawings for us when we was younger. So those are kind of like early influences I had from my mum. My dad, he studied architecture, so I had some influences from early on. And those days we was always playing out. So it was either sports, music, or kind of creative. Creative wasn't really big like that, if that makes sense, those times. So it was like music or sports was generally like the kind of seen as the way out almost. From where I grew up, like a lot of us either like made it out through sports or or for music. Like creative was just something that came later on. So from school, they really supported. My teacher was really good and supported me, helped me with the portfolio, my final exams and stuff to make sure that I did the best and got through those. And then I went into college and studied AVC art and design. So I had a teacher there who I was quite lucky as well. Who really invested in me, really cared about me as a person and stuff like that to make sure that I passed the course. Not necessarily from a point of talent, but more so from a point of attendance. So when I got to college, I was good. I enjoyed art. That's where I learned about my real abilities and intentions, because I was one of those people that would produce creative work very quickly, very easily, like with very little time. So she kind of identified those kind of points. And then I did graphic design as a module, and I fell out of love with it because it was very different in college to what I was doing in school, whereas art was kind of like the same, if that makes any sense. It kind of stayed true to what it was, and whereas graphic design really changed in college. Like when I went to college, it was completely different. It wasn't the graphic design that I thought it was going to be or what I wanted to do with it. So I actually almost fell out of it, and then it was my teacher who kind of was like, no, I know some really good guys in this college called Southwark, and I think you do very well there. I think you'd be good, and all those kind of things. And so I was like, right. She said, I don't think you're quite ready for uni, because those days you had to write, like, I think it was, I want to say 10,000 word dissertation on entry, and I wasn't going to do that. She was aware of that. I was just more hands-on, like creative. So that happened. I then went and did a H&D in Southwark College, and I remember my teacher calling me up saying, if you don't attend this last class, you're going to fail the whole 2 years you've been here. So this is what I mean by the support of a teacher that really cared, because I think those days they really cared. Like, and she was really good. So to the point that actually she got my friend to ring my mobile. So when he phoned me, I was like, yeah, what's going on? And then all I heard was, Jermaine? I was like, oh. She goes, don't hang up. I'm just telling you now, if you do not get to college now, you'll fail the whole 2 years you've done, because your attendance is on the blink. And I passed. So, and then I went to Southwark College and did H&D graphic design. From college, I learned a lot in that college. The module that I needed to attend was a photography module, and that was the module that was going to fail my whole course because it finished at 1:30. Well, on a Friday, I finished at 1:30. Module didn't appear till 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and all my friends had gone home. So it's like it was just me. I attended that class, and I wish I attended it much more, to be honest, because I really love photography, but I can't shoot great photos to save my life. But I really like photography, so I wish I paid more attention to that. And then when I did the H&D, a few things stick with me is that the teachers there was also very good. Throughout my career, I've been quite lucky to have teachers that cared about me and the career that I could craft out of this. And he really invested in people, really invested his time into me and stuff, and supported me along the way, and just like, you could see the potential and the talent. And then that was it. He kind of really shaped. So from there, I did 2 years there on a H&D course. The first thing he said to me when I joined was, if I reject your friends, would you still come? And I was like, yeah. Believe the man rejected everybody that I knew and accepted me only. So it was interesting that he actually did that, and I think he was testing me as a character at the same time. And then after the H&D, university actually fell into me. And what I mean by that is, I finished the H&D, and as you know, the game's different. You've got H&D trying to get jobs and stuff like that. Nothing's happening. There's no movement. One job said I'll start in January. So I got offered a job, I think it must have been around August. They said they start in January because they've got a few moving pieces. My mum was like, no, it's a long time. What happens if the job doesn't come through? Kind of thing. I said, no, we're going to get the job and stuff like that. And I kind of always been a positive person, so kind of believed I was going to get this job. Then I think it must have been about October, November. And I walked into university with my portfolio, and said to the teacher that I want to join your uni in the final year. And that was just the confidence to me to believe that I had that potential ability, because I believe the teachers that I had before put me at such a quite high standard of work that I felt at that point I could walk into uni. The audacity of me to think that I could walk into a uni and tell them where I'm going to start. And it wasn't me being arrogant or nothing like that. It was just that I had a confidence about me that said, I can do this. Like, if I put my mind to it, there's nobody that's going to beat me at this if I really put my mind to it. So I walked into there, basically my mum was moaning at me. I was at home. Got to like September, I was struggling to get up. And as you're struggling to get up, jobs start at 9 those days. There's no job that's starting at 10. It's 9 a.m. starts, which means I have to leave my house to get there for 9 a.m. And at this point, I was getting up at 11, 12. As the longer I was off, the more dangerous this was becoming, because it wasn't like I was taking any other job.
You weren't in that like good schedule. You weren't you didn't have a reason that you needed to get up, and so you were just being left to your own devices.
I would have my mum moaning at me saying, go to work, you got to get a job, you can't just stay at home. So she was on my back. My dad was quite chilled, but my mum was on my back. So I think she was more concerned, as a concerned mum, like, okay, look, I don't want him to waste his life, kind of thing. Like, he's waiting on the job, what happens if that job don't come through? So anyway, walked into the uni, he showed him a portfolio, and to my shock, he was like, year 1. I was like, pardon? I was like, no, year 3. Don't know, year 1. I said, well, I'm not going into year 1. This is not an option, because my portfolio says I can use all the tools. So what are you going to teach me year 1 that I don't already know? We went back and forth. He was like, well, you joined uni in November. Uni's already started. I said, I can catch the work up. Because I was passionate about design and creativity, I had no problem in catching the work up. So after about 20 minutes of back and forth, start Monday. Pardon? Start Monday, you're going into year 2. That's it. Okay, cool, no problem.
It's a compromise.
Yeah. So I walked in November in year 2, and I had a lot of work to catch up on, which was no problem because I hadn't done any design work for a little while. So the hunger was still there. So did all the design work, got through it. December happened, January happened. The job offer came back that I was waiting for in January. I remember mum saying, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I've already started this, so let me finish it. I'm not going to just quit now. And the job wasn't willing to let me do them side by side, and he wasn't letting me. And it was like, I know if I took a break from uni, I wasn't going back. And the guy was I believe the guy would have helped me in many ways, because he was very talented, and he was like, I'm going to teach you something that is going to take the world by storm. And this was like the motion side of things. At that point, motion was there, but it wasn't really like that as a course or anything like that. So he was like, I'm going to teach you all these things and stuff like that. I did reject the job and stayed at uni, which I finished, graduated, came out of uni with 2-2. Although I personally believe I should have come out with 2-1, because it's a graphic design course. The people that got firsts was doing art projects. It wasn't really design, it was art.
Yeah.
Like trapped air in a box and stuff like that. That's art. That's not really design. That's art. So how you get first for that, in my personal opinion. But hey, they're the people that are judging.
So it seems like you had some real champions throughout your education, whether that's people believing in you from a school level or pushing you that bit harder when it came to going to college, and even like I guess a slightly unusual way into university, having started in the second year. You don't hear that often. Do you think that people were really championing you because they could see your talent and they really wanted you to apply yourself more? And like, do you remember any reasons as to why you were maybe holding yourself back, like why you weren't attending in the way that you know that you could have?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, when I was in school, I learned very quickly about the things that I was good at and the things I did like and the things I did enjoy. So I applied myself to those things. I learned very quickly that I was no good at science. I sat, I was in the lowest class in science. I got a double F, and I knew that wasn't going to help me in any part of my career. So when you're looking at those things already, so actually, had I applied myself in other areas, maybe I'd be doing something different. But would I be doing something that I enjoy?
Yeah.
Luckily, my teachers identified a lot of things from early on. The double F and all the other subjects I failed in school did screw me a little bit, because it meant that when I got to college, I couldn't do A levels. But that was actually fine when I think about it, because art is what I needed at that time. If I did A levels, it'd have been spaced out. I'd been doing maybe art, graphic design, and I probably wouldn't have been doing design now, because as I said, I didn't like it in college because the module I had was just awful. A lot of times when I think about people, when they talk about champions and teachers and stuff like that they really resonate with. At that time there was no black teachers. The woman that championed was a white woman, and it was just about, she just cared about me as a kid. I think I was a lively kid, always, never like a bad kid, if that makes sense, in school. But I was always the one with the sweets, the jokes, always getting sent out of class because, like, the practical joker. But it's because the subjects I didn't care about, I just couldn't apply myself mentally to them because they weren't for me. My brain works in a very different way.
Yeah.
And so I was quite lucky in that aspect that they didn't. Now there's lots of labels and stuff, and probably they would have said I had ADHD. Who knows? Maybe it's the way I was taught these things and the way the exams are set up in school and stuff, why I didn't apply myself. Art was the only one that I could actually apply myself in the way that I know best. Coursework, doing the practical things and doing those kind of things. All the ones that sat me down with tick box exercises and all that kind of stuff, I was like, what's the point? Even to the point when I got to college and they said that there was a module, and it was like, I can't remember, it was like some tick box type of thing. Even my mind just like didn't want to do it. And then I got to college, and again, it was a white woman that was the teacher that really cared about me. And I say that to say this, because a lot of people say, there's no representation of them in college and schools like that. And I do get that. But sometimes it's not always about the representation of a teacher. It's about what the teacher can give for you, what the teacher can do for you, how they can help you. And are you willing to listen and accept? So at a time when many teachers could have easily wrote me off, I was quite lucky to have those teachers that actually really cared. And I believe those teachers, I think there are a lot that exist in this current climate, but it's a different game. And I think those teachers really cared. They took the time and made sure that actually that they nurtured me in a way. Aside from my home life and my family and stuff like that and friends, school and college is probably your biggest influence. You spend your most time in school. So a lot of the work is done with those teachers. That teacher only had me once or twice a week, if from memory. I think art was like once a week, and she only had me once, but the impact she had on me was incredible. the teacher that did my PE, and there's like a few teachers in school that had like big influences on me, but they were all in sports, creative. They were all in those fields. None of them was in like the sciences or anything like that because my brain just wasn't wired for those.
Yeah. And knowing what you know now, are you still happy with your choice, the fact that you went the route of going to university and that's what you decided to do, like carry on your graphic design studies?
So there's a whole part that goes with this degree. So the degree wasn't actually for me personally. It was more for my mum. It was more for my mum and my dad, as opposed to myself. So for them, for them, it was like, okay, right, your household now has a degree,
Yeah.
and I think the happy is probably one of my happy moments is that I achieved something that they can say they achieved at the same time, because they was part of that support network that got me in there, that made sure I did the uni and stuff like that. And actually, I know what it meant to them. Don't get me wrong, it meant something to me, but it probably meant more to them than it did me. I think it's that thing from parent to child. I think because that household, and we come from a generation of not necessarily, degrees are not that given to us, and it was completely a new field for my whole line of family. No one did creative, so I was the only one that I was the first one in that bracket that got that degree in that field, which then opened up the door for other cousins and young cousins to do stuff like that. Whereas before it wasn't respected. That wasn't respected like that. Nobody cared. It's like
Yeah.
how you gonna survive? Is that gonna pay you? It was those kind of things. Whereas we understand doctor, lawyer, barrister, but creative is, it's almost like, when I think about creatives, it's like when you go to college or uni, most of us from where I came from would have picked design, music, something along those lines. Not necessarily that I was good at it, but I picked it because I was good at it. But not always was that the case. It was just like an easy route.
Except it's not actually easy, but it was
No,
viewed as maybe as being,
yeah,
for some reason, because it's more creative, it's viewed as possibly being less academic. But when you actually get to the university level of doing these things, there are, like you said, dissertations, a lot of writing, a lot of tests. You know,
and that's it, isn't it?
every single subject is very academic at that level.
I mean, creativity is in the DNA, is what I
Yeah,
personally believe. It's in my DNA, and I think it's in for a lot of us. It's in our DNA's. Culture might change that, and I think if we think back to children, they're the most creative people on the planet because they got
yeah,
the license, they got the freedom to do whatever they want. It's us that kills that creativity, and I think a lot of time, what unis and college and stuff like that can do is they can also kill that creative because they drive you on a mission to what they view as being creative, what they view as being great. But I was quite a rebellious type. I did what I wanted to do. I did the work I liked. I didn't do it. I didn't care if it got the A's, the B's, the C's, or the D's, the E's, so long as I believed it was good work. And that's what I was always pushing for, is like to do something great. Um, not saying I was the best designer in my course or anything like that, but I believed I did the best of what I could do from work. What I felt creative should look like is what I did the best of. And I think I can come out of uni and look back on my portfolio that I produced at uni and think, well, you know what, it was all me. These were my choices, not necessarily teacher choices. They helped shape something, but actually, this was my vision. This was my work. Um, Whereas a lot of other people probably come out of uni with that direction. I need the first, and then they just honed in and work for the direction, because a lot of jobs those days won't touch you if you didn't have a degree. And I almost feel that was a way to exclude underrepresented categories or people from lower social economic backgrounds, because degrees are expensive. They cost money. If you're not living at home, how are you going to survive? Your parents have to, all these kind of things. So I think
yeah.
it was designed as almost an elitist market, that we don't want these type of people in creative. And I think now if you see the shifts, the creative generally, or I say generally, is now representative of culture.
So, in terms of what you learnt during that time, do you feel like it gave you a good base of knowledge that you still draw on now, or do you think it was just, something that really helped to open doors for you?
Unis are good. I mean, unis and colleges are good. I mean, let's not take away from the stuff they do there, because that they still have an. I think picking the right uni, picking the right course is important. I went to uni and picked the wrong course. because I already had a HND in graphic design. So this was like almost, I just need a degree because the HND is not holding the weight it should,
Yeah.
because they don't respect it like that. I just need a degree. So this was kind of my way of like, okay, I was now at a good point of writing this dissertation. I could write now confidently, that kind of level that I believe will get me the degree. So I think with the unis, there's a lot what they do provide. You just got to pick the right uni. So I mean, I battled with a lot of teachers in uni, because what they viewed and what I viewed as creative were different. You know, to me, I was like, oh, I really like this and stuff like that. And when I was going to the interviews, they liked the work I did. So I was like, are my teachers in uni representative of the real world, or have they been in the system too long where they don't understand the real world? Because they're very different. And I think what unis do is help you to open your mind a lot more, because they just leave you to your own devices. But I think their job should be more connecting with the real world. What are you going
Yeah.
to be doing in a real industry? Because it's very different what you're doing at uni to what you do in the real world. And I learned that very quickly. One of the things that my teacher said to me in uni, and I remember the couple of things that got along the way, he said to me, be careful in the jobs you choose when you leave here, because that will shape your career. And he was absolutely right. He gave me some examples of people that have left uni and picked up things for good money. And he's like, where are they now? And he goes, then he used himself as an example. He's now a lecturer. And it's like, and that explained a lot of the way he thought, because he hadn't been in the world. He'd worked in design jobs, but he had been in uni for probably 12 years by the time I got there. So his mind was institutionalized. And it made a lot of sense why he was picking certain pieces of work as the top work, as opposed to some of the stuff that I was doing, which was a bit on the art side. Like my
Yeah.
mind was like still in that art world of creativity and bringing those kind of things. It wasn't until the final year that my mind started to shift slightly in how to bring those pieces in. Like all the stuff I learned on my HND, I was still bringing those in. Those guys on HND said to me, if I don't touch the computer, they're going to fail my next project. So these things helped me, because actually I was hand drawn. Where are those guys now? But the ones that adapted are still safe, but the ones that didn't adapt,
Yeah.
they're gone. So
Think
for
so.
me, it's you got to take the lessons in the uni. Don't think about, I'm just going to go and get a degree and be done, because if you think that way, your work will look like that person's work who's just gone for the degree. Whereas my work was very different. It was raw, gritty, not polished, not clean. All the kind of things you see in our representative of our culture that was what was in my work, representative of where I came from, what I grew up on. So the values and principles I believed in. So a lot of that was in my work, and I believed that they weren't necessarily ready for that, which is why a lot of the time we was going back and forth on work. Although my teacher could see that I was talented, there was a few bits and pieces that we just didn't agree on to that point.
So when you came out of university, one of your first roles was at Next. Do you remember how you went about securing that role?
So I applied for a job in Next, working in the shop floor more than anything. It was just like a retail job more than anything. What I would then do is speak to them. A lot of the guys that worked there was much older than me. I was one of the young cats, and they was always about this. This ain't a career. This is the kind of blah, blah. They just were seeing it as pay. I was in there like that young kid, hungry, like looking for anything. Um, and when I was speaking to them guys, I speak to them a lot about stuff, and we was talking about lots of stuff, and I was telling them what I did and stuff like that. And one person, this woman in HR, actually, weird enough, is that she's the one that employed me. And we was talking, and then I told her about stuff. And she said, "Oh, well, they do design hair kind of thing." I was like, but it never occurred to me. Like I never thought about that. It never occurred to me in any capacity. And don't get me wrong, I was just doing like tiny little bits and pieces, nothing major, because I was still working the shop floor. But it was just the kind of those days you can kind of get into things, and they can kind of let you do little bits and
Yeah.
pieces. So I was kind of doing little bits and pieces for them, nothing like crazy, nothing like major. You weren't getting me to know the catalogs and nothing like that. But it was like just small little bits and pieces and just toying around with things and those kind of things. So for me, that was like my first taste. But actually, it was the point of thinking outside of the box. I just saw that as a job, but I didn't think about anything else. In those days, it was you could just move around left, right, and center quite easily. Not like now. There's all processes and stuff to get certain roles and stuff. Those days, they just literally pluck you and say, "Oh, yeah, you can support on this kind of thing." And so it was actually. great. And then again, the only problem there was that a lot of the guys in those things again didn't really appreciate it. They just thought it was like, oh, again, I'm just getting paid, and just because it wasn't exciting. It was just kind of, I was excited because I was young, fresh, but those guys, honestly, if I didn't have the mindset I had, I probably would have again quit. Um, and the reason why that job actually came to an end, as a complete package, is because we used to do the boxing their styles. It's not to do with design. In fact, that is that I had to work. I had to get to the like 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning, and I'm sorry,
It wasn't for you.
yeah, that wasn't gonna happen, and that was the end of it. That was the end of me, and that was the end of them, and it was all right.
So, so over a period, I think I'm looking at a period of like maybe this is like 6, 7 years. So you went from you working at Next, but you also had other roles like you worked at Tomato, at Fashion Journal, and at Madison. Like, how would you view that overall time in your career when you were just starting out? But I guess you were building some traction, and then getting into Madison, where you stayed for 6 years.
Yeah. Um, so Tomato, um, Dirk Van Doren, great guy. He was, as I said in my career, I've had people that I've always shaped, and there's people that I'll always remember for different reasons. Um, Dirk, I got introduced to Dirk by my mum. She was always singing my praises. I mean, I could have been the worst kid in the country, and I promise you, my mum is my biggest like fan. Always believes in me, and no matter how bad something is, my mum will always believe that, nah, he's gonna go further, he's gonna do more. She's not the mum that will be like, oh no, do you know what? She's the mum that's like, no, my son, she's proud of me. So she'll go to work and she'll just talk. She'd always talk about me and the stuff I'm doing. And then Dirk worked at Creative Aid. Well, Dirk was the founder of Tomato, one of the founders, and she got on really well with him. And she just one day she just called me up and said, "Look, Dirk, give him a call," kind of thing. At this point, I had no mentors. Like, what was a mentor at that point? I didn't know what it was. People say, "Oh, you get mentor," but when I got to understand what a mentor is, the people that look like me didn't want to mentor me. That's the basis of it. Dirk was one of the first people I spoke to that kind of understood a lot of different things. Um, he took the time to understand about me. He's another reason why I went to uni as well. He said I wasn't finished. He said I'm not. He goes, you're not finished, and he said you need to go to uni. So his advice also made me go to uni. And one of the conversations we had, again, I was just helping out little things, like again, nothing major, nothing crazy, just helping out with small little projects on the side, and that was it. He pulled me aside and he said, "Do you know there's an artwork and a designer?" Because I just want to do what he's doing, and I was like, "No, no." And he said, "Looking at your portfolio, you're more of a designer. You're not an art worker." And he goes, so he pointed to the guy and said, "That guy came in here as a designer." And he said he wanted to take that job at an artwork, and he goes, "If you just watch him, he's not happy." And then literally the guy he was unhappy, and he said, "Because there's no design jobs. When he took the job, we told him what it was, but he just wanted the job to get in." He goes, so
Yeah.
he's like, "Be careful on the jobs you choose." So he kind of helped me and he mentored me for a little while. Um, and he was actually he was one of my first inspirations, if that makes sense. In a physical format, in somebody that I could talk to from human
Yeah,
level.
someone you could go to,
Yeah.
have those
And that helped a lot because again he pointed me to uni. So he saw that I wasn't finished, and his thing was that a job would change me. So if I got a job, he's like, it will mold you to be something that you probably don't want to be. And actually, that's what jobs do, and they mold you. So from Tomato, I then I then actually ended up went to uni, finished uni, then worked in a bank for 2.5 years alongside Fashion Journal.
Okay.
Fashion Journal wasn't paying, but I wanted to get in the industry, and you know they were like, yeah, we can do this and stuff like that, and hopefully we started to get a magazine that can be paid for. It was going to be huge, But I think the guy didn't take some of the advice that was given by, not necessarily me, because I don't know that field too much, but some of the key players in the industry. He didn't take the advice too well, and worked there. It was great. I was given a bit of freedom. The guy that was one of the guys that was the designer there, he was very anal to my frustrations, but actually it did help me, because I was still raw around the edges quite a lot. So it did help me. But actually, he was more from an artwork background. Scenes are generally artworking levels. Like a few of those pages we could do design on and stuff like that. But it all has to tie in. So the pages I'm doing need to fit into a bigger puzzle.
Yeah.
Whereas I just want to do some cool stuff. But he's not built that way. He's in his head. It's like, no, we've got X amount of pages. We need to get them all in. All this fancy stuff. Nah. So the magazine did look good. Don't get me wrong. Would I have changed it? Probably, yeah. So I was there for probably about 18 months. He had a break-in, stole the machines. Fortunately, he never recovered from that. That was the end of it. I mean, he didn't have the money he didn't have any insurance, so he lost everything. Yeah, unfortunately, he just never recovered. So that was the end of that magazine. In between all of that, I had offers for various companies, and knowing your self-worth is important at that point, because they will try and lowball you those days. I then went to an interview with a company called Madison, and I spent the best part of close to 7 years there. It was fun. It was the largest cycling distributor in the UK, but they also had an action sport arm, which was where they brought me in. They brought me in for the action sport arm and the fashion end, because they were launching Madison clothing. So these are the two areas that they brought me in for. My portfolio lent to that kind of gritty, raw side. As I said, that was me.
Yeah.
Action sports is very close to the culture in that aspect. It's like, it's high energy, high intensity, high pace, creative, raw, and that's very close to like the culture that I grew up on in terms of the energy, the types of people that are in those kind of cultures. And those kind of games they're similar. They're kind of like rebels, if that makes any sense. So between those two was a perfect blend. I Yeah, I helped change a lot there. A lot of things changed. Magazines, trade catalogs, all these things I was doing there. I helped change a lot of the way that things were done in Madison, which was a great place. I worked there for 7 years. Met some great people, some good friends in there. And I think I always knew I had to leave to build my career. Don't get me wrong, I could have stayed at Madison for the rest of my life in one aspect. But is there something more? Are you searching for something more? And they were moving to Milton Keynes, and that was kind of like the make or break. That was kind of what gave me the real spur to start looking for jobs. Um, and I looked and I looked and I looked, and I got two offers for two jobs when I left there. Uh, One was, I forgot the name of it. They do these hard gels and stuff like that for protection of helmets. So it was kind of closely linked to what I was doing there. The brand wasn't too far removed. It was the same kind of world, so then you understood it. Then there was Vision On, which was where I ended up in the end. But with the other company, they was offering me more money, but it wasn't about the money. It was about the work I was going to be doing. So Vision On offered me something that was completely different to what I had in my portfolio, in terms of, it was fashion, it was the retail spaces, and the only way you get into those areas is via this. No fashion house will touch you generally unless you're working in fashion, retail, something closely aligned where you understand that market or the demographic, or an agency or something like that. So a lot of these fashion companies, when they'll interview me, they'll say no just because of that. And that was fine. I got it. So then when I went to Vision On, I was there for 2 years, and then I got poached. So I was there for 2 years. It was fun. It was fast paced. It was good while it lasted. I learned a lot there, and I gave a lot. So I always think it's two ways. You learn a lot and give a lot. The minute I'm not giving anything, I always think it's time to move on. Or the minute I'm not gaining anything, whichever way it goes, I think you've both got part ways. So
At
I
Vision On, what type of projects were you working on? What did the work that you were delivering look like?
So it was retail spaces. So if you go into Primark, I was the one that was doing all the artwork that goes on the walls, the light boxes and stuff like that. You go to store, you were a project manager, you kind of designing the store, looking at it, thinking like, where can things go, and all those kind of things. So it was completely different. It was like they was a unique place, like a one-stop visual merchandise, I call it, because they did visual merchandising, the design, the project management, just all of these things they did, installations, everything. So they, you work across Pure Gym, Misguided, New Look, so all these buzzword names that employers are like because you understand it now, you work there, you know what those kind of things, what's needed to make things look good. So when I did that one, it was more for that. It was more for, what can I get from them, but what can I also give to them?
Yeah.
I was there for 2 years. The role wasn't quite exactly what it was. So whilst the time flew by, the role wasn't the role that was advertised. It was completely different. Don't get me wrong, I was still doing those things, but it was more controlled. It was more like I'd come from a place of Madison where I was kind of left to my own devices, the freeness, to express my creativity. Whereas I've now gone to a place where it's very restricted. The kind of things that I was told early in my career, that is it really design? Is it artworking? So there wasn't much design. There's more artworking. So I was like, I need to kind of almost get out of here before it's too late. Because if I start going down this very artworking world, I will become, in my mind, stale, because this is not what I enjoy. Some people enjoy artwork and the craft and the beauty of it, but there's a reason why both exist in the same world. Some people love craft, some people love ideas and creativity. I sit more on the creativity side. And don't get me wrong, there's creativity in artworking, but it's just not the creativity that I enjoy doing. I had the conversation with him, he didn't know I was looking, and then I actually wasn't looking, I got poached. And then when I walked in, so I got poached by Oliver and House of CB at the exact same time. House of CB was great. It was on my doorstep. Literally, I could have walked from my house to the office within 10 minutes because it was in Stratford. But actually, when I walked into Oliver, there was something about Oliver that said to me, this is where I want to be. So the woman that interviewed me made me do 2-stage interview. So sat with her, met her, was all good. Then I met the team, got the office and stuff a bit. And I was like, oh, right, yeah, actually, yeah, I could see myself working. I could see myself working with this team. They're really nice. They're really easygoing. So I was like, oh, yeah, cool, no problem, kind of thing in my head. So then I rejected the House of CB, which they wasn't too happy with, but it happens. And then I went and just stayed at Oliver. So I knew from the minute I sat there and interviewed Oliver that actually I was like, this just feels different. It feels like where I want to be. So it was an easy call to just go into that.
And can you tell us a bit about your role at Oliver, kind of what you do, what you enjoy about your work?
Widespread. Oliver's one of those places that the only way to survive is not necessarily about doing what's on the tin. That in Oliver, you survive by doing more than what's on the paper. So no two roles are the same in any team you're in Oliver, because it's built bespokely to the client's needs, but also everybody's needs are completely different. How you operate and all those things are different. So in every team I've been in, it's just been completely different. But what I've relied on is a lot of the methods, the principles, the values that I have, plus what Oliver have, that kind of make them work. If they don't work, you've got to be adaptable. Some people are not adaptable. If you're not adaptable, then that's another problem. Oliver's one of those places that you have to be adaptable. Otherwise, you really struggle. The ones that don't like it are the ones that are not necessarily adaptable, or it's too intense, some will say. But I thrive in those kind of environments where there's always something to do. You're never sitting idle, and those kind of things. When I came into Oliver, it was on a small account, which I enjoyed. The team was small and it was great. But on that small account, I ended up working on so much other accounts, because if I was free, I was never free. I was like, oh yeah, got anything? Let me help. Let me try to do that. And that's how I got to know a lot of people in Oliver, because I just worked in different teams. I worked in different, I didn't really care if I've got nothing to do. I'll help you make the phone calls. I'll help you just do I'm just somebody that cannot sit there and do nothing. I'd rather help you do something that's not in my remit, and then your problem's halved. And that's how I've always operated. So because of that, I think that's how I've got to know a lot of people, work with a lot of people in there. And I think the simplest way to describe my role is to help uplift creativity and help to get teams to create in the true vision for the client by making it the most creative work possible. And you got to make it exciting. You got to have enjoyment. Otherwise, if it's all work and no play, you will leave. And if it's too much play and no work, the client will fire you. So balance is important.
What kind of mediums are you working across? I guess, like, what's your output? Are you working on things that are like just the artwork, or is it out of home? Is it stuff for websites? Like, what kind of work are you doing for the
Yeah.
client?
No website stuff. It's more out of home print ads, digital banners, the digital out of homes. I was going to use short term, but um, social media stuff. Your kind of day to days, your kind of BAUs, and then sometimes it's more creative, more conceptual thinking. So videos and stuff like that, scoping out ideas, writing the creative treatment for them, and then working with the teams closely to kind of build out that vision I have to make sure that it aligns with their vision, but also stays true to what I believe creativity should look like and feel like, but making sure it's in the client's world. Because sometimes you can think one way and go the wrong way because of that. So it's important that you still remain true to what your client believes, but also finding the pockets to uplift and bring new ideas into the table.
Nice. And is there anything that really stands out to you from your time at Oliver, like whether it is how you've been working with different teams, or like a certain project that really stands out to you from your time that you've really enjoyed?
Yeah, I mean, every team I've been in, I've enjoyed because they're so different. But the client I'm on now is the first time that actually it's meaningful work. And I think this is what was important to me at this point in my career. It was like I wanted to do something meaningful, and the client I'm on is the Motability Scheme operation. Oh, sorry, Motability Operations. But most of the work I do is for the scheme. But it's such meaningful work. It's not just work that you just do and actually, it's okay. Let's go. Let's just do it. It's actually meaningful work. It actually changes lives, and I think that's what was important to me in this part of my career, that I wanted to do something that was meaningful. Like I've done sports, I've done fashion, I've done property, automotive, cycling, action. This here was like meaningful. This was like a meaningful project. So actually, at the time that I was in, it was perfect for me to do this because I was like, oh, this is meaningful work. How can I uplift the creativity and make it like personal? So for me, it was personal. It's meaningful, personal work. I wanted to give back. I think as creatives, we don't often get the opportunity to give back. Like, don't get me wrong, like working on Adidas and those kind of things is great, but it is meaningful, but it's not real meaningful work. Whereas this work here is meaningful. So that's I think this one's close to my heart in that aspect, because it's just meaningful work.
Yeah. And speaking of giving back, I know in 2024, that's when you founded BLACQ Space. So you founded BLACQ Space during your time at Oliver. Can you tell us a bit about the BLACQ Space platform and kind of what it's all about, really?
So in the creative industry, we struggled with community. Really, it was what I found in my whole time in working in creative industries. They exist, but in very small pockets, and it's company to company. So if you work for Oliver, you might find a small community, and that's it. But you never integrate with community from another agency or anything like that. You don't really have, as per se, your village. You have like small communities in your tiny little company, like where there's 10 of you in there. That's a small community and stuff like that. So what I wanted to do was rebuild the community in a different way, in terms of let's bring more collaboration together. Let's change that narrative where they say we can't work together. We just can't get along. Like when I first started setting up, people were like, that many black people in a group, it's going to fall apart. I don't think so, because the people I'm talking to, I can't imagine this happening. Don't get me wrong, you ain't all going to agree, but there's a respectful way to do it. And I think for me, it was like, okay, the narrative out there is that we can't work together, we can't get along. Like if there's too many of us in a pocket, it's a problem. So for me, it was like, let's build the community, let's build the culture, let's change the narratives. Let's look at what I've come through. I couldn't find people that wanted to support me when I was coming the ladder that looked like me. And that is important for a lot of reasons, that you have something that looks like you. Even though throughout my career I didn't always have that, there's still a gap, and this is why it's important that you do that. So when I built it, it was just to bring togetherness together, just to bring us all together from a place of trust, love, and community. When you do those things, I believe anything's possible. But if you work in pockets separate to each other, it's never going to build. When we was growing up, we had community. You know, that obviously has changed a lot now. The communities that you come from, a lot of people don't live in communities anymore. They live amongst people. They'll say it's a community, but they just live amongst people. And I ask you, who's your neighbour? You don't even know who he is, because that neighbour's new from last week. You know, people don't stay in places long enough anymore these days. Because of that, you lose community and you lose culture. But actually, it's not that you've lost it, it's changed. The way it's working out has changed. You've got to build it across. And when you build it across and up and down, left and right, it should be okay that I could move anywhere in the world and still have a community. And that's what I wanted to be able to say. Like, if you move from London to, like, I don't know, Bradford, hopefully there's somebody in the community that lives in Bradford you can build another little community out there that's tied to this whole bigger picture. You can ask questions and support each other in different ways in there, and I think that's what was important to me when I was building it. I was like, we keep talking about change, and a lot of the work I was doing it anyway. I was mentoring people, was giving advice, so I just wanted to spread it out to people to make sure that actually everybody could have it, rather than it just being, you know, me to one person. I wanted to say, do you know what? You're asking that question, ask it in a group.
Yeah.
I know some really super dope people. So
definitely inspired other people to take on some of those actions you were doing in that, like, microcosm, and bring it to a wider community, I guess. Like, more people are able to benefit if there's more voices, more knowledge, people from other workplaces, slightly different industries, but all creatives coming together. It sounds like a great community you've built.
Because there was nothing for us. It was always finance and banking, and we don't fit in those pockets. I got removed from many groups.
So I know BLACQ Space really champions Black creatives. Do you feel that was something that was really lacking? Like, did you see a lot of Black creatives being championed when you were coming up in the industry?
Find them. Couldn't find them. LinkedIn helped change that a little bit. But they just didn't respond to me, as I said. Couldn't find them. I could find them. I couldn't find the right ones, I'd say.
Yeah. I feel it's so hard to reach out and message somebody when you're not within the sector at all, because then you haven't got that kind of that blue tick that someone hasn't let you in, someone hasn't said, okay, when you're working at Oliver, I think it's probably quite different. You can approach anybody and people know you're like working for a reputable company, they understand your job role. But when you're first starting out, I feel that is a lot more difficult.
Oliver's probably
university or something.
Oliver's probably the most diverse place I've worked.
Yeah.
And I think it's authentically the most diverse place. It's not a tick box exercise. I've worked in a few places and it's definitely a one in, one out policy almost. And you just don't feel, you feel you're there for, you know, you're there because you're good, but also you're there because there's two faults to it. You're there because we haven't got anybody that looks like you, so we kind of need, but also you're there because you're good. And I think that's a lot of the narrative that needs to change, is that I think a lot of people was going to jobs and it was a tick box exercise, and I'm there because I'm Black. No. You're there because you're good, because you would have still had to be ranked against others, and they're not going to just pick the worst one, because that's just, there's no point. It's like, that's just setting you up for failure, and it doesn't look good. If you're doing the tick, you're going to just apply another one at some point. So I think the narrative has to change, that actually you are there because you are good, not because, you know, it's tick box size. Once you change that, your mindset changes.
With BLACQ Space, what kind of questions are they coming to you with, or why are they joining the community? Are they wanting to know about mobility within the industry, or is it people looking for new roles or advice on their work? Like, what are the conversations that are being had?
Literally everything. You got people, because the BLACQ Space community is split out. So when I set this group up, I learned from all the groups I'd been in and all the problems that existed. Like, so you go into a WhatsApp group. In this WhatsApp group, what will happen is you'll have one group and it'll talk about football, dogs, cats, you know, music, tech, everything you can think of is in this one group. So someone like me would leave.
Because it's pinging off every 2 minutes and the conversations everywhere.
Don't get me wrong, BLACQ Space does ping off, and, you know, but ultimately at the core, it's split out. I've split it out into several different communities. Like you got events, you got jobs, you got all these different communities in one. So you should be able to find what you need in whichever community you join. Some people just want jobs, so they're in the jobs. Some people want to have friendship, want to go to events and all that, so they're all in there. Um, what I did was I shared tickets to events and stuff like that. There's a lot of people that partnered with me, and my thing was creating access. I needed to create access for the community to events and spaces that they're not often in, because the employers won't didn't pay for them, won't pay for them, won't take them. There's always somebody. So for me, it was like, how can I create access to these events? And when they're in these events, they're learning and absorbing a lot, because you need to be in those pockets, I believe, for it to be beneficial. Sometimes you can be in your own little bubble and you won't grow. So in the community, you get a lot of everything. You get jobs, you get events, you can chat to people if you want. People are like, oh, I've got a spare ticket, do you want to come along? Like, they don't know the person, but they're inviting them, and it's great to see that actually that trust is now being reinstated in the community and the people, because you've got a like for like interest. So it's nice to see all these things coming together and these things happening, whereas before they weren't happening. Like, I'm not inviting, I don't know. Well, actually, you might meet somebody cool. Like, they're meeting up and they're going, and it's strictly platonic. There's nothing else like where you're thinking, oh, you might make a move, or she might. It's nothing like that. I've heard loads of stories from the community where those things have happened. They just met up and gone for, to watch a film that they both got the same interest in, or, and I encourage people to do that more, because then it's that kind of thing, no one's left alone. Because I might be a real introverted person, for example, that likes certain things that nobody else likes, but actually you've got a community of people that hopefully there is somebody that likes what you like, so you can get them. Because sometimes in your own friendship circles, you might not have the same interests, so therefore you're not going to the same things. Like, when I think about my core friends, most of them actually, there's only one or two that's actually in design. Like, I think about my core friends that I grew up with and all those kind of things. So there's no real similar interest. They're not gonna come to a design show and like that. Obviously, I've got a partner who I'm quite lucky with, that actually she will come to these things with me if I wanted to come, because they're her interests as well. But actually, I don't have any friends otherwise that always have those interests.
Yeah, same. It's like I understand what you mean. Like, there's certain people I know through work who we could go to an event that's more around like networking and like the marketing industry, that type of thing. Whereas like my other friends who I'm very, very close with, and way outdate me even thinking about having a career, like they wouldn't come along to that type of thing. You're actually more just like bonding with them like family. Like,
Yeah.
it's very different. So from what you've learned from running BLACQ Space, are there any challenges that you think that BLACQ Space could help the wider creative industries help to tackle, like things that aren't going correctly right now, that you think that spaces like BLACQ Space can actually help to resolve?
Yeah, there's loads. A lot of people work in companies where they don't have a voice.
Yeah.
They're scared to speak up, scared to say anything, because they're worried about their job. They're worried about getting fired and all those kind of things. So we can help with that. There's a retention issue. So actually, how can we help with the retention? I can help with that. The community can help with that. There's lots of people in the community that can help with those kind of things. Real authentic change. Checking that you're putting out work. Actually, I've got a community that you're targeting. They can help. They can help shape that creativity. They can help with those kind of insights that actually you're struggling with, because you've got one or two people in your company, when actually I've got 2,000 in a WhatsApp chat. That's that one chat there, and I've got others that are building out. But my actual reach of people is 10k plus. So when you're looking at it like that, how can I help with those, and actually all those kind of things? And I think a lot of the things that I look at is community building, because community. So you've got the BLACQ Space community, which is just our people in that one space. But community doesn't always mean just black people. Community means allies, people from other races, and all those other things. So for me, it's actually, how do we bring those together, which is the thing that I'm doing in the background. And it seems to be working. It's slowly but surely, but working. So for me, it's important that actually you use outside companies other than your own one to help support that growth, because they have no problem getting them through the door, is what most companies tell me. Retention is one, growth is the other. The progression of that person v their white counterpart, maybe. How does that look? Two people start at the same time. How does that trajectory look? Sometimes it stops there for him and he leaves, but it continues for him. So you got to look at these things. You really, if you want to make change, you've really got to deep dive. You've got to be honest and stick your hands up and say, hey, we're not perfect. Let's hear how you can work for us to help us. But I think sometimes the companies are scared because they know it's going to open up a can of worms. But I think once that's opened, you're in a much better place. And I think that's how BLACQ Space is. I came in there being me, authentic, opening up and just saying why it exists. And I've done everything I said I'm going to do in terms of stay true to that mission, stay true to it and what I believe in, my values, my principles. And, it wasn't necessarily it was just because I wanted to make change. I felt that actually one day somebody else would run BLACQ Space, and because it won't be me forever, but actually there's a space for you to go and look. If you have a kid, hey, X, Y, and Z, or that space exists. So that space exists for creative people. Don't get me wrong. There's finance people in there. Everybody's in there because the community can't just be creative because it needs all these resources. But they also need creatives. And it's harder to find them when there's like two creatives in a banking group who are quiet because they're scared they're going to get kicked out.
Do you feel that then you built BLACQ Space as a bit of a space that you wished you'd had when you were coming out of university and you were struggling to find those people that were going to be the right mentors for you?
Yeah, BLACQ Space is my love child. I think when I came in, I wish I had it. I wish I had a space where I could just reach out and just drop a question like, hey. But I was quite fortunate in many ways that I had people that I could, count on to a certain degree. I worked in the design industry, so I could ask people certain stuff. But I wish I had that space where I'm feeling a certain way and I don't know how can you help me? And actually, they would help you. I wish I had it because there's HR professionals in there, all kinds of people in there actually that can help you as an individual. No matter what your problem is or your career path is, they're in there and they're all willing to help. It's such a beautiful community to see the stuff that happens in there, and actually what people are doing in there is amazing. As I always say, is that whilst I may have created it, it's only sustainable by the people that are in there. Like, they're the ones that really built that community. I started it, but they're the ones that helped me build it. I added people. They've also added people. They've also shared information. They've shared stuff, and without that real sense of we want to help each other make change, this doesn't exist. So for me, it's like I wish it existed when I was coming in, but I'm thankful it's here now. And don't get me wrong, we might not today see the real impact of it, but hopefully the generations below will see the impact of it, and it helps them and it helps everybody. Nobody has to go through this. I hope one day that we don't see that you go to a place and actually just in there because you're good at what you do, and you genuinely believe that, not because you're thinking I'm just going to fill another seat.
And so how have you got BLACQ Space to where it is now? I know you mentioned that people are just sharing it with their peers or with their colleagues. Has it all been quite organic in terms of how you've been able to grow out that community? Because you've got over 2,000 people already, but you said you've got an even wider network of people who are really connecting.
Yeah. So because basically what happens is WhatsApp only allows the maximum capacity of people. So I've got a longer term plan for that one. But in all the other spaces that I'm in, it's enabled me all these things. So that community started very quiet. It was just me for, like, people will tell you that when I was in there, it was just me for probably about 3 weeks, rambling, just
That's not a long
saying
time
stuff.
to be alone.
Oh, trust me, it felt long. It felt so long. You're just in there saying stuff, and you're like, do they need it? But actually, I was like, you know what? It's stuff I wish I had. So I just carried on. And then I shared some stuff. I shared some tickets to events and all those kind of things. And I think that's when the landscape started to change slightly. When I started to share things that would often cost a lot of money with people, because what I wanted to show them is actually I am true to what I'm saying. I'm not just going to give these tickets to my friends because my friends will come because free food and free drink. Why wouldn't you come? But actually, these people need it. So I wanted to show them that actually I'm going to share the stuff with my people and not my friends. And that's how I carried on. And because of all those things, I started sharing stuff and doing those things. Other people started sharing stuff as well, which was brilliant. People started messaging more and all those kind of things, and it's just been organic the way it's grown. And I think because they really believe in the mission that we're on, journey and stuff like that. It's not a quick race, but you know, we'll get there.
And where do you hope to be a year from now, thinking about your work and also thinking about BLACQ Space?
Work? Oh, interesting. Interesting. That's a good question. My work. I think in my work, I would hope to see more people like me. So for me, in a year's time, if I'm up here, I'd want to be able to look across the table and see more of me, because that for me is a win. That for me is a result, regardless if it's me that's physically done it, or I'm part of the reason it's happened, or I'm not any of the reasons. Just to be able to see more of us at a playing field is where I hope to be in a year's time. So actually, it's not a career trajectory, because for me, the work I'm doing now, I've only been on this account for a short time, so it's meaningful work. So I'm happy where I am right now. Um, I'd hope that the work on the account maybe win some awards someday. Um, but actually, I think what I'm on now is more a mission. It's not really personal to me. It's personal to me. Like the work's great and all that stuff, and it may hopefully win the awards and stuff like that. But how do we look at a table that looks different? And that for me is important. BLACQ Space for me, it's just a community, man. I'm hoping that the community stays strong and still lives in love and shares everything that they can and helps push it and grow it. Because as I said, it's not just for me, it's for everybody, and that's why BLACQ Space. Many people will tell you they didn't know I was the founder of it. It's not my face you're seeing all over the place. It's only on things like this, yes, but you're not seeing my face all over it. You go on my Instagram page, I'm only in 2 pictures on there, but the rest is my people. Same with my LinkedIn page is my personal page. So that's me. I do what I want to do, say what I want to say. But the BLACQ Space page, I don't send anything from it, because it needs to. If I'm going to send it, it needs to be clearly distinctive and true to BLACQ Space. It can't be about me. They're two separate. That's the community's voice. That's everybody's voice. So I need to be careful about how I say and what I say from that page. But my personal page is me. I say whatever I want to say it how I want to say it, how I feel. But that's a representation of all of us. So I'm always very careful about what I say from a BLACQ Space perspective, because that's not about me. That's about all of us. It's a representation of all of us. People see it that way as well, and that's why it's completely separate. That's why people, whenever they see it in person, they don't know I'm the founder, because it's not about the limelight for me. It's about the mission, actually. Who the hell is BLACQ Space? It's you. It's me. It's them. It's us. It's everybody. I never really set out for that, to be in the limelight or anything like that for it. I just set out to build something from the heart.
And for people across the advertising, marketing, creative sector, if you could put one thing at the top of their list that they really need to solve right now, an issue they need to address, like what would that be?
I think the industry still has an issue with quality, diversity, community. What I would say is the top of the agenda should be community. And I don't just say that from a black lens. I say that from an underrepresented lens. Build that community properly, because we don't live in a world where only black people, only white people, or only Asian people. We live in a multicultural society. But whenever we talk about diversity, you see the color of my skin first. If you're disabled, you see the disability first, if it's visible. So you always assume, or the assumption is, that you're talking from only your perspective, which isn't the case, because we all need to fit in. We've all got different voices. We all need to be in it. So actually, whilst I do talk from a black lens, I also talk from a diverse lens. I don't just think, oh, okay, only my people. I think about the whole bigger picture, because actually, that's what builds community. We don't live in community. I don't live in a rural city where it's just me and everybody else is white, which makes it. We live in London. Some people, and don't get me wrong, I can only talk about from London. I live in London. I don't live out in those places. So for me, when I think about it, I'm like, London's so diverse. Why have we got situations where there's a lack of diversity in a London company that you founded 2 years ago?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why? So for me, it's important that we do all that. So I think if we can do that, and they can openly come out and be honest, they have to live in their authentic life. I think that's the problem. If you don't live authentically from their lenses, we're always going to think the same thing. Come out and own up for your mistakes. Come out. George Floyd happened. Everybody said all these things. Ask them where they are now. Oh no, we've got AI. We've got all these things that they put on top. Every time we're talking, it just goes down. We just go down the pecking order all the time. And that's not just for black people. That's for all underrepresented categories. Generally, just go down the pecking order. You'll find a way. But whenever it's black, it's always uncomfortable. That's what I've always found. When it doesn't need to be uncomfortable, it's just a conversation.
And before we go, where can people keep up with you, and how can they find out more about the work that you're doing with BLACQ Space or get involved in that community?
LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm very active. I always say to people, like, find me on LinkedIn, because on LinkedIn I will always respond. Or you can just go to the BLACQ Space pages. We've got a blackspace.com website, which will link you to everything you need to know. And I think that's the main thing, really. It's either just find me on LinkedIn or just go to blackspace.com, and it will put you wherever you need to be put. And I'll have the conversation with you, get you where you need to go.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jermaine.
No, thank you.